I am a firm believer that once you are a manager, your success is completely dependent on your ability to build, scale, and find success for the people who work for you.
Nice.
If you are not team focused from the second you have a team, you will fail.
You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guests about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. Oh, it is fun to reconnect with people from the past.
Absolutely.
It even gets more fun. See, I love it. Even right there, I'm connecting with someone from the past. Absolutely, Kendall. It even gets more fun when you connect with someone who was a part of a fantastic employer experience and truly was a valued partner in creating a great customer experience. It's been a few years since we've caught up, which is why I am looking forward to talking with today's guest, Kendall Berg, Director of IT Planning and Execution for Cetera Financial Group. Well, that's one element of Kendall. Another side of Kendall is her focus on helping others grow in their careers. This is a classic case of being asked to do something so often by people that Kendall realized, well, I guess it's time to turn this into a business. So Kendall is now also that career coach with non-fluffy, practical, no, really, this is how you grow your career advice delivered on TikTok, Instagram, and via her one-on-one coaching practice. And near and dear to this host's heart, a fellow podcaster as well. All right, Rick, that's neat and all. You get to meet with somebody from the past. She's well versed in business and data analysis, IT leadership, and career coaching. But if I'm going to give you my weekly ear holes and eyeballs, I better hear some customer experience talk, right? Absolutely. When I was at Capital One, Kendall's role focused on business analysis, which was a team that was absolutely vital partner to our customer experience pod. That combination of data and heart brought out excellent customer insights and both employee and customer experience improvements that made a tactical business difference. Additionally, Kendall has now brought that customer focus into her career coaching in ways we'll explore during the show. The intro to CX Passport talks about exploring new directions we never anticipated. Do you think a weekend decision to move from Dallas to Colorado might open new directions never anticipated? Yeah, I bet they did. And I'm going to want to know more about that from Kendall today. Kendall, welcome to CX Passport.
I'm really excited to be here, Rick. And as you mentioned, I'm always excited to connect with people that I've worked with in the past, that I've been able to work alongside and create great progress for different businesses and different companies. And so I'm excited to see where the path takes us today.
Lord have mercy. I have I have a little bit of an idea, but we'll see where it goes. So, I mentioned that I knew you as a business analyst and a leader of business analysts, and now you're a leader of IT planning and execution. Okay, got that side. But I also mentioned in the intro, there's this other side to you, career building and career coaching. I really want to know, tell me a little bit about that side of your world.
Yeah, so I've always been really passionate about development, whether that is development for myself, whether that is development for my business, whether that's development for the individuals who work for me or work alongside me. And as I progressed in my career and became more senior, I made lots of mistakes, right? Anybody who tells you they progressed their career in a perfect streamlined pattern with no mistakes, I would be hard pressed to believe. And so,
That's kind. I would call him a bald-faced liar.
so as I moved up, I realized there was so much that isn't really taught about how you work, right? In the same way that it's not really taught how to know what a customer is thinking or what they care about or what they value. The same is true about the employees, about leadership. These lessons are things that we're supposed to either infer or learn by doing incorrectly on the job. And so I became very passionate about sharing the wisdom that I did have with people around me, with people who I'd worked with. And it really just snowballed from there that suddenly I had people making recommendations, making referrals, people are sending other people to me, and it blew up. And so shortly after that, we were rocking and rolling with that career coach and helping hundreds of people across the world. I had a client in Singapore yesterday, and then I talked to somebody
Nice.
in France in the afternoon, and then a Finland client in the evening, and really helping them progress and grow their careers in a way that is going to be valuable to their companies, but also help them get the results that they want.
I absolutely love it and love the global approach. You and I didn't talk about that. I love the fact that you're talking to folks around the globe in this business, and it warms any podcast named CX Passport. It warms this heart for sure. Now, you had said something earlier that really resonated with me, and it's in this career coaching vein. You had said people grow their careers by being more customer centric. Now,
Absolutely.
I'm a very strong believer in that companies grow by being customer centric, but I hadn't really directly attributed it to the individual employee and their career growth. How do people grow their careers by being more customer centric?
There's a lot of books talked about how to influence people around you, right? How to influence people
Mm.
is a very popular corporate book. I feel like everybody's recommended it the day they graduate from college. Like, have you read How to Make Friends and Influence People? No? You should check it out. And one of the big tenets about that is really understanding the priorities of the people you interact with. If
Mm.
you understand what somebody else wants, it's a lot easier to get them to do what you want because you can address it from the lens in which they have value and they are attributing value. The
Mm.
same is true with your end customer in your business, right? If I work for a company that sells widgets, I need to understand why customers want to buy widgets in order to do my job effectively. And that is true from the person answering the phone to the person doing the data analysis to the person who's making executive decisions. If you don't understand what your end customer values, what they find to be important, no amount of data is going to teach you the right actions to take, right? And I know
Mm.
you and I've
Mm.
talked about this ad nauseum. It's something that's often comes up, especially in highly analytical organizations, is that emotional side versus the data side, right? And we worked with a leader years ago who once told me that it doesn't matter if an issue is 5% of the time, if it's 95% of the complaints. It's still
Okay.
95% of the problem.
Uh-huh.
And I find that to be so true. And so when individuals come to me and they're looking to progress their career, my first question is, okay, what are the problems that your business faces? What do they need to do to be better positioned for your end customer?
Yeah.
And then how are you going to help the business do that from where you sit? That is the most powerful motivation for proposing new ideas, for innovating, for creating process improvements. But if it doesn't start with how does it value the end customer in mind, it's much harder to get buy-in and it's much harder to articulate your own value to the company when asked for promotions and progression.
Yeah.
What have you done to help us? I'm paying you all this money. And if you can say, I solved these three problems for the customer, that's a huge win and a much easier conversation.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
I think something you alluded to before, and it's triggering this thought in my head when you're talking about focus on the customer and improving the business. I think a lot of career growth too comes when you're stepping out of what your official role is. And I know, especially when I was more junior in my career, that was something that was a struggle. And
Mhm.
now I'm an independent consultant, so everything is my responsibility. So that's no longer a factor anymore. If it exists, I got to do it. But earlier on, you're like, well, no, that wasn't my job. I don't want to step on toes and that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
But this idea of using the customer as your indicator, your mark, your North Star for what you might want to attempt, even if it's outside of your role, I got to imagine that even if you've maybe don't make it all the way, at least there was that focus on the customer and you were trying something for the customer. Have you seen that work with your clients? That focus on the customer helps expand them beyond their existing role into something new?
Absolutely. And it's something that I talk about often with my clients is non-promotable tasks. And again, this falls into
Okay.
that category of things you're not really taught. So if I hire somebody to run a report every Thursday and they come in and they run that report every Thursday, and that's all they ever do for me, I'm going to say they are solid at their job and they are exactly at the level that they should be and they're doing exactly the work that they should. I'm never going to put that person up for promotion. I'm never going to give that person increased scope. I'm never going to get them in front of senior leaders because they haven't shown that indication that they are interested in more scope, that they are taking on new problems and solving them. They're doing exactly what they were asked to do. And that's kind of the definition of a non-promotable task. Whereas the work that most often gets you promoted, gets you accolades, gets you in front of senior leadership is that work nobody asked you to do. But once it's done, adds value to the entire company. And, you know, you and I have discussed this before. It's something I talk about often with my clients is I have presented to the CEO of my company 3 times in the last 12 months, and not a single one was for things related to my job. Every single one of them was related to either customer experience or employee experience. Not a single one fell within my job description. And I think that alone, as a single point of reference, shows the impact that it can have to have that focus. As long as you have supportive leadership and a customer and employee focused business culture, looking for those opportunities to lean into EX, to lean into CX, and find that new scope will always be more successful than just doing your job.
And you said something there that really hit my ears. One, absolutely, right? Use the customer as your way to focus. And that's like you presented to the CEO and things outside of your role, but you use the customer or the employee experience as a reason to do it. You said something in there. I'm not going to be able to quote you verbatim, but in an organization that values the customer, in an organization that values the employee experience, what's your advice to employees or people that you're coaching if they perceive that they are in an organization that doesn't put the customer at the center or doesn't put the employee at the center?
And this is where the corporate game comes more into play, right? And this is kind of my bread and butter is what is the corporate game? How do you navigate it? That's what I spend most of my time talking with my clients about. And the culture that a company possesses undoubtedly determines both the success of the product that the company is pushing and the success of the employee within the system. To your point, if the company does not care if their end customer is happy or if their internal employee is happy, navigating that circumstance is going to be much more difficult, right? It's going to be one of those situations where the best way to progress is to understand the priorities that they do have right above your level, right? Maybe that's process efficiency. Maybe that's product introduction. Maybe that is marketing campaign success or reach or engagement. They may not care about the end customer, but they care about something. And that's where you're going to focus your attention in an environment that's not building what I would consider to be a healthy business culture. Now, if you work for a company that does have a healthy business culture that is surveying their employees, surveying their customers, reading those survey results, very key part of surveying is actually looking at what people say in response, just like.
You mean, wait, hang on now, doing something with the survey?
Shouldn't need to be said, but in my experience.
All right, I'll have to edit this out. That's crazy talk. I'm not going to read it and do something? Shocker.
Read it and do something. And if you're in a company that does have that culture, it's much easier to find scope that's going to be impactful to the business.
Yeah.
And so in the situation you're describing where that's not the value, you have to figure out what is important to them. And that's where you're going to align your efforts. And or you're going to assess that it's not the right culture fit for you and you're going to find something new.
I was waiting for that to come in. I'm like, Kendall, isn't there also the exit option? It sounds like, yes, there is the exit option. Obviously, hey, how can someone grow where they are and try to perhaps even manifest change towards a customer where they are? But I'm glad to hear that exit option.
Yeah.
Let's take that and flip it a bit. So you said it, and it's a very true statement, right? That you can't, the employee experience has an immediate effect and a direct effect on what kind of customer experience you create. So if you're working with someone and you're helping coach either that leader, the team, or the department or a company on how to create that better employee experience, how do you help them excel at establishing those great employee experiences?
So there's really two folds to that. So the first is there's been a lot of research done that shows for an individual to be successful in a company, they have to have a skill to value alignment. So what I mean by that is if your skill is being results oriented. You're a great executioner of work. You need to work for a company that values results. If you work for a company that values bureaucracy over results, you will not be successful. You have a skill value misalignment. If you are someone who is very strong on the communication front, right? You're able to articulate things effectively, but you work for an organization that values siloed corporate entrepreneurship, you're going to have a skill value mismatch. You're not going to be able to apply your strongest skills in that organization. So the first piece is on the company side, being able to assess and get the right skills in your organization that are going to align with your values. Make sure you're bringing the right people into the fold. And we could have a whole separate podcast on how to assess that in an interview and where that sometimes goes wrong. But where you can bring in people with that skill alignment is really important. Because if you're bringing in people who have great skills, but they don't align with the values of the company, the employee is going to be unsatisfied, and so is the manager/company. The second piece is that actually doing something about feedback, right? And there are so many companies, and we could name names, but we won't, that do surveys. They get this reputation of like, we really care about employee culture. But when it comes time to put pen to paper or money in the bank account to actually fix some of the issues that employees care about, suddenly it's not as high of a priority. And so when I'm working with leaders who really care about their people, it starts from understanding what do the employees want and what are their goals.
Brilliant.
And it's not a pizza party. In case you were curious, it is not free pizza on Fridays. I have never, ever seen that as a request in a survey in all my years of reading them. And I've been reading them since you and I worked together 5-6 years ago. So if you can understand what the employees want, it not only makes it better for them because you're working on the things they care about, but it also makes it easier as a manager to give constructive feedback.
Oh, sure.
Because if I say, hey, I know you're looking to get promoted at the end of the year. One of the things I need to see from you is an improvement in your communication with executives and some of that executive presence. Here's some places where I've seen you struggle, and here's some opportunities for us to get there by the end of the year. That is a much more beneficial employee conversation that's going to help them achieve those goals. If you just come to them and say, hey, you need to get better at communicating, they have no idea what that means. And if you can't apply it to their goal, they probably don't care either. And so making sure that you understand what your employees want, both from a personal professional development perspective, but also from a company benefits perspective, that's going to allow you to build that better employee culture. And that's going to translate into everything they do, how hard they work, what kinds of things they deliver on, how they face the customer and interact with the customer. And that ultimately makes the business more successful.
It is amazing how the same themes just come up, different topics, different discussions. You and I are talking very career coach and very career oriented. And yet that same recurring theme of listen and act and do something with it, whether it's the customer, whether it's the employee, it continues to come up. It doesn't surprise me, and yet it does surprise me. Maybe it delights me. How about that? It doesn't surprise me, but it does delight me. Now, you want to talk about action. It's that story that you told me where one weekend you are sitting in Dallas and decide, let's move the family to Colorado.
Yeah.
I love impulsive travel experiences. I love that choice of, let's go do this excursion, this trip. Let's try this alley. Let's see what's down there. You've taken that to a completely new level with an impulsive family move. What drew you to Colorado, and what new directions and experiences have you discovered there?
Yeah. So I have always enjoyed being outdoors. So growing up, my family was not a camping family. We were like an outdoor sit by the pool with a cocktail family, I think is like the best assessment. And as I got older and I started to explore the world more, I sort of started to explore the country more. For me, it's being outside. That's where I feel grounded. That's where I feel connected. And that led to me coming to Colorado very frequently. So I did my freshman year of college up here. And then my husband, when he and I met, his family had a home here and we came here every summer. And there was something about being able to walk outside of your house and be in the outdoors and not suburbia that was very, very appealing. And so, yes, you are spot on. We basically had a conversation one Thursday night saying, hey, COVID is here. Do we want to stay, or do we, this is the time to make a change if we wanted to make a change, and said, maybe we should think about moving to Colorado. Flew out here the next day, bought a house Sunday, listed our house for
Dude.
Monday, under contract on Tuesday, here 2 weeks later. And it has been hands down the best thing we've ever done for our family. My kids are really connected here. We have been very blessed to make great friends, great connections. It's hard. We both work remote. And so we don't go into an office and meet friends at work that we can grab a cocktail with or join clubs. And so we've had to be much more intentional with our time, with how we, meet people, how we retain friendships as well. And we've both been really lucky that we've been able to meet great people. We've explored different parts of Colorado. We have by we, I mean I, because I'm very type A, have like a laundry list of cities we want to visit in the next 12 months. We have like trips booked every weekend. But I would say for me personally, the best part has been watching my kids grow up doing things outdoors that not everybody gets to try, right? My kids learned to ski down our driveway with like
Dude.
$20 skis from Walmart, and you just strap them in, you push them down the driveway. Like, they only have this far to fall, it's fine. And that's been really cool. Or watch my kids. My daughter is 6. She can go for a 2-mile hike. She wears her backpack full of water. She does her hike. She knows the directions. She can point out all the different trees and the flowers along the way. And just watching them kind of really connect to this place that we live has been really, really exciting. And then obviously, I think being kind of on our own, our family unit is like very connected as a result as well.
Kendall, that is beautiful. That is just fantastic. I love the impulsiveness of it. I could never go that impulsively, but I do love the idea of the outdoor child raising and what that has in store. Now, there wasn't a lot of time for y'all to experience the lounge, but I know that you've done your share of travels and have probably found the burden of travel, and sometimes it's nice to stop down in the lounge. So I'm going to invite you here into the first class lounge today. We'll take a little break, move quickly here, and hopefully have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
Ooh, from my past. I loved Amsterdam.
Yes. Tell me why.
I think it was the most unexpected part of a trip that my husband and I took, where there's all this water and there's all these beautiful parks and there's all these places to walk and everybody is outdoors, which seems to be a theme for me today. But I think it was one of those places where the pace of life seemed slower,
Nice.
even for being a big city. And so it's a really great place to go and just be.
Yeah, that the bicycle culture really gives you a vibe of slowness, even though sometimes those bikes are about to take you out. And I've gotten in some trouble walking in the wrong place as a walker versus a biker. But you're right, you do get that vibe that it's just a more laid back culture. I like that. What about the future? What is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
So I leave in 5 weeks to hit Switzerland and Italy.
Yes.
So we've done Rome before, but we're doing Lake Como, which is like a bucket list
Beautiful.
place for me. And I will be so disappointed if it doesn't look like I stepped into a James Bond movie. I'm going to be just like very sad. And we're hitting Grindelwald, which is a mountain town in southern Switzerland. Obviously a character in Harry Potter as well, but primarily because they have this bridge that leads out really into the middle of the air, and you've got 360-degree views at the top of a mountain. So really excited to hit that as well.
That sounds delightful. I think that's going to be a fantastic trip. You have mentioned one country that is quite well known for its food, Italy, and many others as well. What is a favorite thing of yours to eat?
Ooh, dumplings. It's like the easiest answer I'll give all day.
Brilliant. Now, are we talking about Asian dumplings, or are we talking about Southern dumplings, or what are we talking about
I
here?
can swing either way, but I would say Asian dumplings for me.
Oh,
To eat, Japanese gyoza, or to eat bao, or to eat dim sum, any type of dumpling, really, I'm a fan. I just think that they are delicious.
Well, you have now just become my children's favorite person in the world, and I am a big fan of dumplings as well. So I can appreciate that one as well. Let's go the other direction, Kendall. What is a thing your parents forced you to eat but you hated as a kid?
Ooh, pork chops.
Whoa, that's a new one. I get vegetables, I get Brussels sprouts, I got bugs from some person. I've never gotten pork chops. Really?
My dad loves pork chops with applesauce, which is like a
Hmm.
very southern thing.
Yeah.
And I hate it. And I think we had it like every Thursday night for my entire life. And I got really good at like cutting it up and moving it around so it looked like less. Like I'm so skilled at that. And to this day, I don't think in my adult life I have ever had a pork chop. Like I may
Uh,
never again partake.
well, that's the reason I ask these questions. I get surprised so often. I was expecting the lima bean and I got the pork chop. Okay. Closing out with travel. What is one travel item, not including your phone, not including your passport, that you will not leave home without?
Ooh. I don't know. I'm a pretty lightweight traveler. I feel like it's anticlimactic to say face wash, but like I like a clean face, I guess, would be kind of my go-to. I can have dirty clothes, but I'd like my skin to be at least clean.
Kendall, I love the just absolute simplicity. Yes, I hate a dirty face as well. So, yes, while it might not be my one item, there's certainly a place for that in my travel bag for sure. Yeah, I tell stories from our Capital One days. And there, a lot of who I am as a customer experience person was shaped during those days. And there's a particular solution that I still reference today in my yay customer experience stories that came out of that era. And I'm sure you remember this. Contact center agents, whether they're support, servicing, loan origination, pick your poison, they're at the forefront of the delivery of customer experience. And I'm the one who I'll say they co-create the experience with the customer there. You were at the center of a solution that dramatically improved the agent experience, which in turn improved the customer experience. Would you share that story? How did you discover that challenge and the solution?
Yeah, I will say in general, Capital One was such an interesting culture to work for because they truly, in my experience, cared both about their customer and their employee to an extent that I have very rarely enjoyed in my corporate career. And while working so closely with kind of our frontline employees, as you and I did, there were a lot of things that we heard about in surveys, in
Right.
responses that they were struggling with. And I think one of the biggest ones that we faced was just systemically, their system did not operate well.
Yeah.
And the individuals who were good at navigating that system could only do it because they'd been doing it 10, 12, 13 years. And they knew
Mm,
every little button to click. There was no key. It was not like Facebook where you naturally know kind of how to navigate. It didn't have that easy user interface. And in talking with every single person in that business, that was the number one complaint. The
yeah.
system is hard to use. It's hard to train. It's hard to get people up to speed. It's hard to know how to use it effectively. And so I'm a very grassroots individual. So I did what I do, which is, hey, can I sit next to you and watch you work for an hour? And I sat and I watched, and the whole time, all I'm thinking is, I cannot believe that they are doing this.
Yeah. I imagine you were pulling hair out because it was so maddening to see this.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we timed it in the beginning. It took 37 clicks and over 6 minutes to get to a customer profile in
Ooh.
the system they were using. So it was just insane. And so we sat, we timed things, we documented things, we understood where the biggest pain points were. We spent probably just 3 weeks, really day after day, sitting there and watching and trying to understand where we had issues. And I was very lucky to have very supportive senior leadership. We took a proposal to them and said, hey, I think the system could give us incredible efficiencies if we fixed it, if we had
Hmm.
something that would allow employees not only to do their work more efficiently, but to onboard new people more efficiently.
Right.
And they basically were like, great, we'll send you to a 2-day training. We'll give you 4 people. You've got 6 months. Do the best you can, and let's do a POC and make sure it works. And that's exactly what we did. And we came back and we built a system. And one of our co-peers stepped in with me around that same time and was also helping. And we were able to dramatically decrease the amount of time it took every task. So that
Yeah.
6 minutes to screen went down to 37 seconds. That 2.5 minutes to get to files went down to 40 seconds. Everything went down incrementally. And as we rolled out and as we tested, the response from the employees was so much better. But not only that, because they could navigate to things much quicker and because they understood what was needed of them, what was expected for the customer, their communications with the customer were much more effective. They were
Yeah.
much faster. And we ended up decreasing the amount of time it took to close a file very dramatically. I think we went down by almost 40%. And we're able to communicate and increase our customer satisfaction because every time they talked to somebody, they got the same answer. They knew exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah.
The responses were timely and quick. And then on the back end, I worked with your team to build reporting on all of that. Hey, have we reached out to who we're supposed to reach out to? How long is it taking? What are the customers saying? How many times are they calling in? Are they calling in more than once? And building kind of that ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Of here's what I do as an employee. Here's how that translates to what the customer gets, to the customer experience, to the employee experience, and that full ecosystem of how we tracked all that was incredibly impactful for the organization.
That's what I love about that story and why it's a part of my just stock repertoire when I'm talking about successful customer experience initiatives is a lot of times, and it's still a right path, but a lot of times it's start with the customer. In this case, it was start with the employee. And yet it still benefited the customer. It still provided tangible business results. You spoke of a faster path to onboarding. Well, yeah, if you hire somebody, isn't it great to get them more productive faster?
Mhm.
All of these things come into it by looking at that employee aspect of it and how that improved customer experience. No, listeners, don't hear me say stop listening to your customers and only listen to employees. I'm saying make it an and statement. This story proves it, and it really was a massive win for the employee, the customer, and the business overall.
Yeah.
Kendall, I want to close out talking about today's world. I want to go back to the coaching part that you do in the career development. We've talked about the data elements that go into a business analysis, and even your description there of the reduction of time and that aspect of it. But there was a heart component too. I joked
Mhm.
about pulling your hair out watching these employees. You had to have a heart for the employees. How do you help others grow into that aspect of that career, their careers, blending the data side and the heart side to make a successful career?
I am a firm believer that once you are a manager, your success is completely dependent on your ability to build, scale, and find success for the people who work for you.
Nice.
If you are not team focused from the second you have a team, you will fail. And that is true
All
at any level of seniority. And I know the first comment everybody makes is like, yeah, but I had this one boss. Okay, we've all had that one boss, right?
right.
Everybody's had one they worked for that to this day they're like, oh, that guy, hate them, right? You're never going to get rid of that one person who sneaks their way through. But
Right.
in general, what I talk about is you've got the individual contributor to manager to executive pipeline, and each one requires a mind shift and a focus shift. So to go from an individual contributor to a manager, you go from task orientation to people orientation. I have to care about my team, how I scale them, how I grow them, what they care about, what they value, all the things we talked about earlier to build their success. And then I get out of the way so that they can build their success forward. We should
Mhm.
be in a constant state of replacing ourselves in any type of managerial role. You're doing yourself and your team a disservice if you're trying to hold tight to your position. But once you start to make that transition from manager to leader is when you become customer focused.
Yeah.
So you've built that people skill, you've built that heart, you've built those relationships internally. And to progress to that director, senior director, higher levels, you must have a mentality shift that says, okay, not only do I care about my people, I care about the company's people. Whether that's beyond my org, whether that's our end customer, whether that's my personal internal customer. And by valuing that, you're able to put the things that you want in terms of what they want. You're able to build more successful processes, like we talked about that overhaul at Capital One. I am a process person, but the process has to work for the person. It doesn't work for the individual. It doesn't matter how great your steps are, how documented it is, how easy it is to read or to follow, if the person who's expected to do it doesn't want to or can't. And so when you talk about building heart and building that care, you have to seek to understand, and then you have to build around that, and you have to build them up. And the more successful your people and your businesses, the more successful you'll be.
Awesome. Oh, we're going to leave it right there. That is exactly where we're going to stop, Kendall. That is a fantastic. I could talk to you for a lot longer, but that was great. Let's end right there. Kendall, with that kind of wisdom being shared here, both in the business space, the IT space, the business analyst space, the coaching space, how can others get in touch with you to learn more about the coaching and any of the rest of the content that you offer out there?
Yeah, so on any social media, you can look up That Career Coach. So that's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, podcast. It's all That Career Coach. And then thatcareercoach.net, you can reach out to me directly. That's how most of my clients end up with time on my calendar, so we can talk about your individual issues. And, part of what I think of as a coach is I got to understand you. Who are you? What are you looking to do? What processes work for you? What interpersonals work for you? What doesn't? And then we make a plan for that. And so love interacting with lots of different individuals, lots of different companies, do speaking engagements. The best way is start with that website.
Awesome. Well, as you know, listeners, scroll down. It's right there in the links. You don't have to write any of that down. Scroll down, click the link, book time with Kendall, and find your career accelerating. Kendall, it was great catching up again. What a great story, the impulsive story. What a great the career wisdom, and even just getting the chance to kind of relive that success at Capital One. That was a fun opportunity today. So thank you for being here today. Kendall, thank you for being on CX Passport.
Yeah, I loved coming on CX Passport. I'd love to come back in the future. And, if anyone has any questions, I'm always available to help.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you like today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.